this is about, I feel, the lost art of being a pro audio salesman. Because when I was a pro audio salesman, I would sit down with clients and go through things at every little detail to make sure, the whole package of what they wanted to do was put together. And I remember even, I think it was like 15, 20 years ago, on the cover of Mix magazine, they would always credit the designer and never credit the people that put all the gear in there and had it wired up and made it all function. And I remember the editorial put my letter up there. I said, hey, how about a little bit of credit? Because as a pro audio sales guy, you're the guy who makes everything work and makes all the recommendations and makes sure that the client knows, what they're buying. I remember one time this producer, his name was Butter. He was looking for me, and he got in touch with me, wanted to come over to my office, and I think I spent maybe 2 hours with him going through every last detail of everything he needed, from the speakers, the console, to, the Pro Tool system, the computer, every little detail, all the cabling. And so when we were all done, I had a whole long list of everything he needed with the pricing. The only thing is, when I was done with that and I gave him the sheet, he took off and he said, "Oh, I'll get back to you in a couple of days." I said, "All right, that's fine." And then I get a call from Guitar Center asking me if I could sell them a pair of Quested monitors sideways, meaning I'd mark it up like 10% and then they make their 10% or whatever. And it was very unusual that the Guitar Center would ask for Requested. And it happened to be that this guy Butter went to Guitar Center and he was buying the whole package from them. And the reason being is they could finance the whole thing. So I lost that sale because of the financing end of it. But there's things about being a pro audio salesman. I saw in some of the comments, if you sell a piece of gear and a client is having a problem with it, you jump in the car, run over and see what the problem is, or you follow up and make sure everything works. I remember selling one client a bunch of gear, and followed up on him to see if he was doing anything. He said, there's kind of a problem. I got there and he had a grounding loop going through the whole thing. You could hear it, and I figured out where it was, and everything was quiet when it was done. And he was so thankful that he could compose. I even, one other client of mine, I sold him a bunch of gear, and an older gentleman, we became really good friends. And I followed up with him to see, how are things going? And he said, well, I haven't really used the gear. I said, why not? And he says, I just can't get this thing to work with. So I took a ride over and saw what there was something that he couldn't make work. And I got it working for him, and I explained how it worked. And he was off and running, and he was composing again. And so when I say the lost art of being a pro audio salesman, and I just don't think you can do this through the internet. It's a face-to-face kind of meeting to find out. You kind of almost have to find out, what is the client trying to do? What kind of music are they trying to do? And, make the recommendations on putting the whole package together, and then doing the research for them. So while they're sitting next to you, you're explaining things to them, not just, putting it together because you think these are the best things, but going through all the options with the client so they understand, these are my options for this, or these are my options for that. And having them face to face and having a showroom, say, well, let's go listen to some speakers, or let me show you the console, or let me, show you the Pro Tools, or show you how this all works. So it's part of your job as a pro audio sales guy to make sure the client gets the best gear for them, within their budget. And sometimes it's outside their budget. You show them something a little bit better, they'll like it. But I just see that whole part of doing business going away, because right now I don't see any pro audio sales dealerships lasting anymore. They're all kind of dwindling and going away, and nothing's replacing them other than these online internet places, Sweetwater and Vintage King and all, where we just call them up and they're supposed to give you all their advice. And those guys are under an enormous amount of pressure to keep producing because they're being monitored. And I just don't think they have the flexibility to spend the time with you And even if they did, I just don't think it's the quality time to see someone face to face. So I think people should have local pro audio dealers to deal with people. And there's enough business in every territory to do this thing. So there's my little rant about the lost art of being a pro audio salesman. And I truly believe that it's going away. One other point I wanted to make about doing pro audio sales the way I used to do it and the way it used to be done, and calling it a lost art, is it was actually cheaper to buy the gear back then than it is to do it now. With the whole map pricing and dealers can't advertise cheaper, anything like that, you're paying the map pricing, which is a lot more money than you should be paying. When you would come into my office and sit down with me and I would go through everything, I would discount everything. And depending on how much you bought, and a lot of times it's a big package, there was a pretty good discount. None of these big internet companies are offering that anymore because they're too scared. And they also, they enjoy the profitability of saying, well, we got to go by map pricing. And it's great the way it was. So you paid less money and you got a better deal than what you're getting now. You get less service and you're paying more money. So never made sense to me.